The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. Welcome to the show. Well, there's only one story these days, not only here in the United States, but around the world: the economy, the economy, the economy. And the more the news media covers the economy, the more confused we collectively get. What are the real root causes of this crisis? Was it too much government intervention or not enough? And how should this be resolved? Should the government interject itself into the fray? Should the government be creating jobs through stimulus packages? Or should it, like the rest of us, be tightening its belts to avoid bankrupting our children's futures? Well, one of the most preeminent experts on this area is our guest today. He is Dean Baker. He's a macroeconomist. He is co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Dean Baker, first I want to welcome you to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com. And you basically were the guy who coined the bubble. You warned us that the bubble was about to burst. Nobody was listening.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on. We got here, because of incredible negligence. We let this housing bubble keep growing and growing and growing. It eventually got to be an $8 trillion housing bubble at its peak in 2006. That comes to about $110,000 for every homeowner in the country. And it was inevitable it was going to burst. I couldn't tell you exactly when. I couldn't tell you exactly what all the repercussions would be, but I could tell you that there was going to be an awful lot of bad mortgage debt. There were going to be a lot of people who could no longer afford to stay in their home. There were going to be a lot of foreclosures. And there were going to be a lot of bank failures because banks were holding mortgages that were going to be people were defaulting on. So all this was predictable. Again, I won't say I could give you the exact time, nor could I tell you, for example, Bear Stearns was going to go under. I didn't know who was going to go under, but I knew many people were. I knew Fannie and Freddie were. That was almost a no-brainer. The people who were in charge of running policy, certainly Alan Greenspan at the Fed, and our Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson and his predecessor Jack Snow, they just totally missed the boat on this, as well as, I should say, the vast majority of the economics profession. I really don't know what these people were doing. This is far and away the most important problem facing the country, but most economists did their best to ignore it.
Why is that? Why did they ignore it? How could a guy like Alan Greenspan, who was the guru supposedly of economics in this country, screw up so badly?
It's a real good question. I can't answer for certain in the sense that I don't know Alan Greenspan, but I think a couple things. One is the economy was in really bad shape back in 2001, 2002 because of the crash of the stock bubble. And I think he thought the best way for the economy to recover from the stock bubble was to rely on the growth propelled by the housing bubble, because the housing bubble not only promoted the housing market itself, and housing construction grew, and we had record levels of sales in 05, 06, so it's this direct effect, but it also propelled the economy because people were spending based on their housing wealth. They'd see their house price would go up 20 or 30%, they'd refinance, take out a home equity loan, they use it to buy a car, build an addition on their house, take a vacation. So that was really driving the economy. So I think Greenspan thought this was the best way to boost the economy. And I gather he was thinking that, well, maybe it'll burst and I'll be going. And to some extent that was true, of course. It burst under his successor's watch. Ben Bernanke, of course, was sitting there when it actually burst. But in that sense, it wasn't his problem. So, it's a rather cynical view.
Dean Baker, when it burst, the pus fell all over Alan Greenspan. And at his advanced age, the advisor to how many different presidents, suddenly he was looking quite foolish, and it's almost tragically so.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's less tragic for him than for all the people who are losing their home and losing their jobs and life savings. But it doesn't make him look good, and I don't know how you could paint a good picture on it. I mean, it was an astounding act of negligence. I think, all the evidence was just overwhelming, and I really don't understand how he could have overlooked it.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Okay, so let's say it's easy for us to see this now. In retrospect, everything is clear as can be, 2020. But looking forward, there's a lot of debate about how to get out of this mess. Obviously, the president is pushing the stimulus plan. He says that today that if we do not get this plan into place, it will be, using the president's word, a catastrophe. Geez, I thought it already was a catastrophe. I mean, you can't open up the paper, for those of you who still get papers, or turn on the radio or television or read on the internet without learning about more and more layoffs. It's like an avalanche now. Even though the president is totally focused on this stimulus plan, the Republicans are pushing back, trying to decrease the size of the plan. One of them's got to be right. One of them's got to be wrong. If the president is right about this, why are the Republicans playing partisan politics? That's if the president is right.
Well, I think the president is certainly right. We need a very big package to stop this slide. I mean, just so everyone could focus here, we're losing over 500,000 jobs a month. We're going to get new numbers out on Friday, and I think it's going to show job loss of more than 600,000 for the month of January. The economy is in a virtual free fall, and if we don't pass this bill, it's going to get much, much worse. The most important immediate thing in this bill, the stimulus bill, is that it will give money to state and local governments so they don't have to make layoffs. Here in Washington, all the governments, being in D.C., you get the news for Washington, for Virginia, for Maryland. All the governments in the area have large budget deficits. They have layoffs that they've already put in place. They have much more planned. If they don't get money from Washington, and that's the only place to get it from right now, they're going to have to go through with those layoffs. So we're going to see downturn accelerate. We're going to be losing jobs at an even more rapid rate. If this passes, then we'll stop that. We'll stop the state and local governments from laying off workers. We'll start to get some progress in terms of creating jobs, in building infrastructure, in retrofitting buildings. It's a start in turning around the economy, and it's really the only thing we have going. Otherwise, we're just going to see the rate of job loss accelerate, and I just can't imagine why anyone would want to see that. And my guess is the Republicans really don't have a clue. I mean, keep in mind, these are people that totally missed what was going on. Many of them were running around saying the economy was just great just a month or two before the election. So I think they're just trying to, make brownie points. They made a big issue that in the stimulus package they're going to resod the Washington Mall, and they said, oh, that's not stimulus. Well, of course it's stimulus. It spends money, it'll create jobs. You can argue over how good a thing it is. I live in D.C. I actually don't go much on the mall, but I think it's probably a good idea. People do come around the country to go to the mall, so it doesn't strike me as a bad thing. But they ran around trying to ridicule it. I mean, it's an $800 billion package, so you could find an expenditure in there to ridicule. I'll guarantee that. I'll guarantee there's not a single bill that Congress ever passes of that size that you can't find 100 things to ridicule. So, they're trying to play games. They're going on their